Hello everyone. Welcome back to my BNB spoiler channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. The Riviera sun should have meant celebration. Instead, it lit up the wreckage of everything Ridge Forrester had come to Europe to build. The business trip was supposed to cement Forrester Creations' hold on the European market. Instead, it had collapsed in a single afternoon. Simone delivered the news herself. Lewis's board had voted to cut ties with Forrester, and the reason came down to one word: Logan. As if that weren't enough, Fanny Grayson had already jumped ship, taking her new fragrance line straight to Logan Creations. Ridge could stomach corporate losses. He'd survived worse. What he could not stomach was learning that his daughter had fled the country in tears. Steffy was everything to him. The center of his family, the one person whose safety he would burn the world down to protect. And now she was running again, chased by the same shadow that never seemed to fully go away: Sheila Carter. He didn't have to wait long to find someone to hold responsible. John Finnegan burst into a high-stakes meeting Ridge and Brooke were having with an important client, Chloe. Frantic, disheveled, searching for his missing wife. Chloe walked out in disgust at the interruption, taking the deal with her. And Finn, without meaning to, walked straight into the one place in Monaco he least wanted to be. Directly in front of Ridge. What followed wasn't a conversation. It was a reckoning. Ridge tore into his son-in-law with a fury built from years of watching Sheila terrorize the people he loved. He didn't raise his voice so much as weaponize it. Every word aimed at the fact that Finn had failed, again, to draw a hard line against his own mother. In Ridge's eyes, none of the board votes or lost accounts mattered next to this one failure. Finn had let Steffy's sense of safety shatter, and this time he had no excuse. The long flight home. Finn didn't defend himself. He couldn't. Standing in the wreckage of Ridge's anger, all he felt was the crushing weight of what he'd actually done. He'd believed he could handle it, that keeping quiet about a secret understanding with Sheila struck on the flight over would buy peace instead of costing him everything. Instead, that choice had detonated his marriage. On a beach in Monaco, Steffy had pulled off her wedding ring and thrown it at his chest. Now she was gone. Vanished, running from a trauma he had, however unintentionally, delivered to her front door by keeping her worst nightmare a secret. There was only one thing left to do. Finn booked the next commercial flight to Los Angeles and folded himself into a window seat for the long haul home. The small, sealed cabin a strange mirror for how boxed in and alone he felt inside. For hours he sat with nothing but his thoughts. Steffy's face, streaked with tears. The sound of her trust breaking. He rehearsed apologies that felt smaller every time he ran through them, made promises to himself about finally, permanently cutting Sheila out of their lives. He wanted so badly to believe good news was waiting for him at the other end of this flight. But underneath the hope sat something colder, a suspicion that he'd crossed a line this time, one that no apology could walk back. He had no way of knowing how right that fear would turn out to be. A dimly lit office. Thousands of miles ahead of him, Steffy was already back in Los Angeles. Back but nowhere near safe. She'd returned from Europe with her defenses in ruins. The post-traumatic stress she'd carried since the night Sheila held a gun on her in that alley had come roaring back, torn open fresh by Finn's betrayal. She retreated to the one place that still felt like hers, her CEO office at Forrester Creations, and reached for the only thing that promised to dull the pain. Alcohol poured heavier and heavier as the night wore on. She wasn't alone for long. Carter Walton found her there, carrying a grief every bit as raw as her own. The composure he usually wore like armor was gone. His wife, Daphne Rose Walton, had packed her bags for Paris, and the marriage he thought would last forever had collapsed almost overnight. The cause traced back to a diagnosis. Dr. Lee Finnegan had delivered the news that Daphne was dealing with severe infertility and early menopause, and the grief of it had pulled Daphne into a depression so deep she became convinced she was holding Carter back from ever being a father. No amount of Carter pleading, no vow to stand by her no matter what, had been enough to change her mind. She left anyway, and left him with nothing but silence. Two broken people. When Carter walked into that office and found Steffy alone with her grief, something between them shifted instantly. Neither of them reached for the usual script. Steffy didn't perform strength, and Carter didn't offer the easy, useless reassurances people give when they don't know what else to say. Instead, glass by glass, the two of them started talking, really talking for the first time in either of their memories about how much they were hurting. Steffy told him everything. The terror of realizing Sheila had followed them to Monaco. The devastation of finding out Finn had known and said nothing. Her voice cracked as she said the words out loud for the first time. She couldn't stay married to him. Not with Hayes and Kelly to think about. She would not raise her children under the constant looming threat that Sheila represented. Not again, not ever. She admitted, quietly and with something like grief for a person who wasn't even dead, that she didn't think Finn would be her husband much longer. It wasn't really about one lie. It was the accumulation of years spent flinching at shadows, of loving a man whose compassion for his mother kept outpacing his willingness to protect his family from her. Steffy had been fighting that battle largely alone, and she was simply out of fight. Carter listened without trying to fix anything, and when it was his turn, he gave her the same honesty back. He told her about Daphne's diagnosis, about the conversations where she insisted he deserved a wife who could give him children, about the unbearable quiet she left behind on her way to the airport. His voice shook as he admitted plainly that his wife no longer wanted to be his wife. Somewhere in the trading of those two stories, something changed. Steffy looked at Carter and saw, with total clarity, a person in exactly as much pain as she was. Not someone trying to rescue her, just someone drowning in the same water. The years of friendship between them gave way to something more urgent. The specific magnetic pull of two people who suddenly understood that they were the only ones in the room who truly got it. The line they couldn't uncross. Neither of them was thinking clearly anymore. The alcohol had worn away whatever hesitation might have stopped them, and grief had replaced it with something more dangerous. The desperate need to feel anything other than the ache they'd been sitting in for hours. It started small. A hand on a shoulder. An embrace that lingered a beat too long. And then the walls between friendship and something else came down entirely. What happened next in that office wasn't calculated or cruel. It was two people trying to drown out unbearable pain by holding on to each other, consequences be damned. For a little while, in the middle of the room where they normally built and defended a business empire, neither of them had to think about Finn or Daphne or what tomorrow would look like. But even as it happened, the shape of the mistake was already visible in the room with them. This wasn't something that could be quietly walked back. If it ever came to light, it would tear through the entire Forrester family and reshape everything. Personal, professional, all of it, in an instant. The cruelty of the timing is what makes it unbearable. While Steffy and Carter were crossing a line neither of them could take back, Finn was still in the air over the Atlantic, holding on to hope that hadn't yet been proven false. He had no idea that the marriage he was racing home to save no longer existed in the shape he thought it did. That somewhere below him, the woman he loved had already found comfort in someone else's arms. He kept rehearsing his apology anyway. He kept believing it might be enough. It's hard to fully blame either Steffy or Carter for what happened. They'd both been pushed to the edge of what a person can carry alone. Trauma on one side, abandonment on the other, and they reached for each other because there was nothing else left to reach for. That doesn't make it right. It makes it human, which somehow feels worse. Dawn will come to Los Angeles the way it always does, indifferent to the wreckage underneath it. The alcohol will wear off. The grief won't. And Steffy and Carter will be left staring at exactly what they did, with no way to undo it and no idea yet whether it stays a secret or detonates everything around them. Will they be able to look Finn and Daphne in the eye again? Will guilt tear the two of them apart, or will the secret they now share bind them together in some dark, unspoken way? For now, only one thing is certain. Whatever comes next, nothing between these four people will ever be quite the same again.